This video was sponsored by Dungeons of Dragonheim, a 5e adventure set in the world written by the Dungeon Dudes. There's a lot of content in this book, like monsters, magical items, and of course, the mysterious substance called delirium. There's a link down below if you want to back it. There's also a bunch of really cool stuff that you're gonna get if you do back it right now, so highly recommend checking it out. It's pretty cool. Alright, it's the next session of our D&D group playing the Lord of the Rings campaign, and the game is now split into two different parties, Frodo and Sam, and Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. Frodo and Sam are currently traveling through Emin Muil and trying to survival check their way to Mordor. Unfortunately, as explained in the Fellowship of the Ring, neither of them decided to take proficiency in survival. Also, again, Sam and Frodo's characters are newer to D&D and don't really care much about the rules or the nitty-gritty. Most of the beginning of the session plays out kinda like this.
Oh, Sam, I don't know what I would do without you.
Okay, Frodo, need you to roll a survival check.
3.
Yeah, you recognize everything around you. You haven't made any progress.
We're going in circles.
Boromir's player rolled up a new character and has been wanting to introduce himself for a while now, but the DM wanted to work with Boromir because he really wanted his new character to be ingrained into the world. Plus, because of his previous shenanigans about taking the ring, he asks Boromir to really have good reasons as to why his character is the way he is. So Boromir, now Smeagol, writes up how he's this ancient hobbit who had the ring for hundreds of years and it turned him into Gollum. The DM adds, yeah, you could actually be that NPC who told all those riddles and actually had the ring in our first campaign. Smeagol adds, yeah, and I've been following the party for a while now and I've been to Mordor beforehand so I could guide Frodo and Sam there. The DM really wants that and has Gollum join the game. So Sam hates Gollum because he tried to hurt Frodo in the last session. He doesn't trust him and thinks that he didn't join the other game just so he could use the ring. Frodo is just generally untrusting but doesn't hate Gollum or Boromir. He just wants everyone to have fun. Plus in the previous game, Gandalf, told Frodo that he was a pretty good friend of his and he didn't really want his character to keep dying. So he's like, hey man, killing isn't the answer. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum have this RP moment where they all fight as Gollum's first thing that he wants to do is take the ring, and his character is again like, oh, it's what my character would do. But the DM forced Gollum to roll all his stats, and he rolled an 8 in everything except for Dex, so he's pretty easily overpowered by the hobbits. Gollum's player is also doing this like method acting version of role playing with weird voices and like a dual personality because his player has played a ton of Adventures League and watched a lot of D&D streams and wants to kind of show up these new players. He thinks he's making the game really cool, but really he's just making everybody uncomfortable and weirded out. He eventually explains that he can lead them to Mordor, and Frodo's like, yeah, take us to the Black Gate, because that's the only entrance that Frodo knows about. The DM really wants to cater to Sam, Frodo, and Gollum, so he does very few combat encounters, because it just slows down the game. They don't really enjoy it all that much, and they'd rather just do a lot of RP encounters, which ends up being pretty fun. So they have this swamp bit where Frodo fails a wisdom save and Gollum saves him, a fell beast that nearly attacks them, but they all stealth and talk about the ring and how awful it is. Or when they're at the Black Gate, Sam falls and Frodo uses his Cloak of Elven Kind to roll a really high stealth check and keep them from the eyes of random NPC bad guys. But just as they're about to go into Mordor, the DM realizes, oh crap, they got really far and they can't go into Mordor yet. I don't have any of it written up. Plus, I have this whole other campaign that I'm going to run with everybody else, and if they just kill the ring now, then there's gonna be no more campaign. So he private messages Gollum and says, hey, this entrance is actually really dangerous and there's a better secret one in the southern mountains. Gollum doesn't want a TPK and keeps Frodo and Sam from going and explains the other way into Mordor. The DM is like, oh darn, the gate closed already. Guess you have to go the other way. Whoops. Everyone is kind of tired at this point and they call the game there. The DM wipes all the sweat off of him as he prepares to have more campaign for the other party and to make Frodo's life really hard so that the campaign is longer and he doesn't in one game destroy the ring. The next session starts with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli going to save Merry and Pippin. It's a total game change for the DM. Not only do these three love the nitty-gritty rules and survival and combat aspects of D&D, they also don't care all that much for RP. They have a couple of one-liners, but they keep the game going. They have a goal and they want to accomplish it. They're using their character abilities, they're tracking the Uruks, the DM even throws them a bone, and Pippin does the smartest thing he's ever done in his tiny life and leaves behind a clue to their location. They run into a random encounter with the Rohirrim, where the DM gets to explain his world building that he's wanted to get to for a while now, and what's going on with the rest of the world and Saruman's plans. And he even sets up the spooky white wizard in the forests of Fangorn as a sort of boss and a direction for the party to go. But the DM didn't want an enormous combat with 30 Uruks, so he had the Rohirrim kill them all, but they can go hunt down Merry and Pippin in the spooky dark forest. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are actually pretty disappointed, not because Merry and Pippin might be dead, but because they really wanted to fight all those Uruks. I kick a helmet. You take 1 bludgeoning damage as you break your toe! Aragorn does his ranger stuff and tracks Merry and Pippin into the forests of Fangorn. As the 3 head in, they encounter Saruman, who casts shield and heat metal. But then, Gandalf's character walks into the room, completely surprising the 3 players, and they're like, dude, I didn't know you would be here. I thought your character died. And he explains how he had contingency with Revivify casted on him since The Hobbit, and since he soloed the Balrog, he leveled up like 5 times. So he's Gandalf the White now, and Saruman has got to go down. The DM is like, all right, so you're gonna go find Merry and Pippin, right? And he looks down at the prep for his game involving Treants and Isengard in this big war battle, and Gandalf is like, hey, what if we went to Edoras and took their whole army and just attacked Mordor with it? And the other 3 are like, oh my god, let's do that. And the DM is like, oh, why? Gandalf is also like, yeah, screw Merry and Pippin. I really don't care at all what happens to either of them. They've made our lives so difficult, plus they're just DMPCs, so let's just head off to Edoras. The DM promptly panics. Getting a whole army sounds cool, but I mean, they'll have to earn it. They can't just march in and do whatever they want. So the DM comes up with, well, the king is currently being mind controlled by Saruman, the villain that you guys should go defeat right now, and that's why they aren't helping anyone. And he banished their whole army, so it's just a sad little village. I cast Greater Restoration. I forgot you had that spell. Yeah, I'm like level 18 now. Aragorn goes down to the horses to be like, yeah, I'm going to pick out which one is mine. And then there's one that's going crazy because the previous prince died while he was on him. Aragorn goes down, has this RP moment where he casts animal friendship and he talks to the horse. And then Aragorn lets him go and the DM gives him inspiration. And everybody at the table's like, in your time of need, that horse is going to show up. Brago's going to show up and save you when you're nearly dead. And everybody goes, ha 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 ha. Anyways, let's keep playing the game. The 4 of them fail in persuasion checks to convince Theoden to attack Mordor with their horse army, and the DM plays up how he's afraid that Isengard will attack Edoras. You know, the threat, Isengard. Let's focus on Isengard, guys. You know, Saruman, the villain. Why don't we go do that? The party explains that they could protect Edoras pretty easily and just hold up a fight here, but the DM doesn't have a map of Edoras or a good battle map for the whole area, but he does have this really cool cave fortress battle map, and the king is like, Helm's Deep, we'll go there. Everybody rolls their eyes as they travel to Helm's Deep, which is where the session ends. The next session, it's Frodo, Sam, and Gollum. Gollum decides that he's going to try to gain the party's trust a little more and decides to shove down evil Gollum and be more Smeagol. He gets food for them. He's generally just kind of nicer. Sam still has 0 trust and calls him a stinker. Frodo's like, dude, come on, he's part of the party. Just chill out. Let's just play the game. Sam RPs about potatoes. They're just kind of wandering around, not doing anything. The DM and everybody's kind of bored. Smeagol pipes up and says, oh, hey, we're near Gondor. That's, I wonder if my brother will show up. I mean Boromir's brother. I wonder if he'll show up because remember he has a brother, Faramir. He's like around here. The DM is like, ugh, and starting to realize that he has more fun DMing the other game, which is just really exciting. And this one is just role play and boring. And you know what? He decides, sure, why not? Opens the monster book to a random page, finds Oliphant, and has a bunch of Gondorian ragers fight some Oliphants. And they're like, ooh, wow, this is so cool. Smeagol just totally metagames here and explains who they are. And the DM realizes this is a perfect opportunity to stall this part of the campaign. So Faramir shows up and takes everybody prisoner. This is the DM not looking much further into Boromir's character and thinking that he's just a power-hungry a-hole and then plays Faramir as a power-hungry a-hole. And Smeagol's like, no, dude, he's different. There's so much character involved. And the DM's like, I'm not going to read your 90-page document about your backstory. Smeagol's like, I'm going to sneak away, gets a 20. DM sets up a scenario to get him back, and Frodo lures him in because splitting the party is dumb. The DM has Smeagol take a bunch of damage as all of these dudes beat the crap out of him and is really hammering how mean these guys are to the person who wrote them as a cathartic moment just for himself. Just like, ha, you wanted these guys to be in the campaign? Well, here they are. They hate you. Please, for the love of God, please do combat. All I'm asking is that you do a little bit of combat. Sam and Frodo are eyeing the DM like, dude, are you good? And are still just doing nothing. They're just in the cave, sitting around. Sam is finally understanding what this campaign is supposed to be and has some empathy for the DM and how frustrated he is. So he says, let's just go do the quest. Let's go get rid of the ring. Why don't you stealth out of here with the ring and I can make a new character? Frodo understands, but also he doesn't want to give up what they already have and doesn't want Sam to make a new character. So they just kind of sit around and do nothing. The DM's had enough of this and decides to make the game just one game again. This separate game is not getting anywhere, and he's just going to put the party all together. In reality, the DM is just upset because he's realizing the other game is more fun and these players are just newer, and he's trying to make this game that game and it's not working out. But Faramir takes them to Osgiliath because at least if Frodo and Sam are in Gondor, they'll meet up with the rest of the party and they can do a big Gondor treasure heist for the ring. Frodo does not want this game to become one game again. He hated playing with all the other players. Sam doesn't really mind so long as he's with Frodo and they're doing the mission. It's the one way that they can actually complete this story. Gollum has abstained. Frodo goes, no, I'm gonna put on the ring because I know it'll summon the Nazgul and then we can't leave. DM is like, damn it, that would totally work. And they have this huge encounter with the Nazgul and this is enough to allow them to possibly escape. But not before Sam, in the middle of this giant mess of the DM trying to force them to a location, Gollum not doing anything after being captured by his previous character's brother, Frodo trying to fight the DM by not combining the games back together, explains how these stories are really important to him, and this journey may not be the happiest, but it's still really fun. It shouldn't be about the stats or powerful rings or epic characters or all the drama, just the fun that they get to have here at the table. Everyone's like, damn, he's right. So the DM lets them go, they head back on their journey to Mordor, and overall, this side of the game has gone back to normal. They're going on the quest, they're happy about it, and content with the story. Meanwhile, Gollum decides to be a problem player again. In the next session with the other party, the game is a little bit of prep, some RP. The DM tries to give Aragorn a love interest with an NPC. She rolls a 1 on making soup, and then combat. Aragorn hits 0 HP, but comes back because Brago came in his time of need. Combat. DM balancing the giant Uruk encounter with some elves because otherwise everyone was gonna die. Combat, and Gandalf spends the whole session getting that damn army to come in and attack the entirety of the Uruks. And after a huge combat session filled with Gimli and Legolas counting their kills, everybody leveling up, and finally acquiring that Rohan army, everyone's like, oh yeah, we're gonna absolutely destroy Sauron and Saruman with horses. They all go to Isengard with their unstoppable army and find out that Merry and Pippin destroyed it already with tree ents. The DM is like, yeah, see what happens when you abandon quests? Merry and Pippin are heroes now. They're not useless, and you have no reason to hate them. Gandalf is like, damn it. We could have had a tree army instead.